Okay. Well, I want to officially welcome you to our Michigan Conference online media training. This is provided by the Michigan Conference through a generous grant from the Council of Conference Ministers, and this training is certainly available to people beyond the Michigan Conference in the wider church. So I really encourage you after this presentation to share these slides. And if you also want to bring these slides to your own context and train other people, that'll be the fastest way that you are reinforcing the knowledge that you gain here today. So there is some follow-up trainings that are scheduled over the next year, and this training will be offered again as well. So you can certainly take it multiple times, and you can also take these slides and you can teach them in your own congregations. Here's a brief overview of our time today. We're going to start with some group introductions. We have a centering exercise. We're going to start with why, and then move to media messaging, interview techniques, social media content creation, digital storytelling, online safety, and then we'll have a group discussion and we'll close our time. So now is the fun part. So each of you here, I would invite you to use the chat. And if you're so willing, to also share aloud what you write in the chat. And for our intros, I would like for you to include your name, your church's name, the city your church is located in, the role at your church, and one reason you're excited about this media training. Now, it's going to take more than 30 seconds to type all of this. So we're going to have 2 minutes to type. But the idea is that you're sharing this information if you decide to unmute and speak in 30 seconds or less. That'll just help us get used to speaking at a faster pace and also speaking in soundbite form. So let's just take the next couple of minutes and type out our introductions in the chat. So it looks like several folks have already added their intros. Would anyone like to unmute and in 30 seconds or less, introduce yourself? And feel free to raise your hand so I can see you because I can't see everyone right now because of the presentation mode. Uh,
Lawrence, I don't mind starting.
Sounds
Can I
great.
do that?
Please.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. My name is Karen Metcalf. I am on conference staff in communications. I'm also a children's minister, the minister of children, youth, and family at Salem United Church of Christ in Farmington, Michigan. And I am excited today just to meet all of you.
Thank you, Karen. It's really great to have you here with us today. Anyone else want to unmute and introduce yourself before we begin?
I'll go ahead, Lawrence. I am Julie Cole. I am the administrative assistant at the United Church of Big Rapids. Many of you may know of us because we're one of the churches that have been without a pastor for about 3 years. We
Oh,
have finally called a new pastor. She'll start in October, and we're trying to get all of our social media all together and starting on a good foot.
Sounds great. Great to have you here, Julie. Katie, I see you've unmuted.
yes. I'm from Richmond, Michigan, and actually we have a community that's mostly older people. So a whole bunch of people do not feel comfortable at all doing anything online. So I need to be more comfortable doing online for people who are not part of the older generation. So I'm hoping to do that. And the other thing is we have people who are online who do not want any email at all. So you have to text message them. And I don't know how much you can text message as an attachment.
That's a great question and challenge. There aren't many texting platforms that allow those kinds of attachments, especially larger ones. Um, and yet, you are here today, and I am glad that you are. And thank you for being a resource to your community. Does anyone else want to introduce themselves in 30 seconds or less, sharing your name, your church name, the city your church is located in, your role at the church, and one reason you're excited about this training? And I see Rudra has raised his hand. Hi, Rudra. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Rudra Dunsla, Kama the Reverend. My pronouns are he, his, him. My church name, I am serving the Community Unitarian Universalist congregation in Brighton, Michigan. So my church is in Brighton. I am the contract minister there for 2 years at the church. And I'm here to get an update of what are the best practices for small churches to be doing with their media. And I wanted to echo, I have a number of congregants who don't do email. They want everything by text message.
Yeah.
And others want it by email, and there's no happy medium. And I don't like my phone being flooded with all these text messages and stuff. For me, that's like, okay, there's an emergency going on here. This is like last minute stuff to take care of, and I'm never going to be able to track it. My email is where I could file stuff and find stuff again later. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And thanks for being here. And Jen Ringgold is with us today, and she put in the chat two options for apps that allow for
Oh,
attachments. So GroupMe and WhatsApp. And there are hundreds of apps out there. So thank you, Jen, for putting those in the chat. And I will be monitoring the chat some, but I invite you all to also monitor the chat. You can be active in the chat, put questions in the chat, share resources as we're going along. We will have some time at the end for a discussion, but it's really great to keep the chat going. Anyone else would like to introduce themselves before we begin? All right. So now let's have our centering exercise. We're going to read each of our texts. We're going to have a brief pause for reflection, and then we're going to respond in our chat the prompt, how do I live out my faith through media? So I'm going to read our first passage. It comes from Habakkuk 2:2. Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain on tablets so that a runner may read it. Our second passage comes from Matthew 28:19 through 20, otherwise known as the Great Commission. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age. In the chat, I invite you to take the next couple of minutes. We'll probably pause for about 2 minutes to reflect on and to answer the question, how do I live out my faith through media? And if you don't have something, you just take the 2 minutes to reflect, and something may come to you along the way. You can add it as it does, or it may not, and you can just sit with this question. We're all here for various reasons, and we also share and live our faith through media in different ways. And it's exciting to read some of those as they're coming through the chat. With everything we do, and especially here in the Michigan Conference, as with any organization, it's important to start with why. The mission of the Michigan Conference of the United Church of Christ is to bring churches closer together and closer to God, equipping pastors and congregational leaders through ministries of support, guidance, and leadership development. But what's our why for being here today? The purpose of this media training is to create digital evangelists and media ministers, so you all can change your titles by the end of this, to serve as ambassadors for the church and for Jesus Christ. Don't let that sound intimidating. A media minister is someone who utilizes media tools to minister, and to minister means to teach. And in our case, we're teaching about our faith, we're teaching about our church, we're teaching about Jesus. A digital evangelist also sounds a little intimidating, but think about John the Baptist in the 21st century. He had a message and he was going all over the place sharing that message. Had he had a smartphone and an app, he would have been posting and tweeting and sharing pics about his experiences. So we're just modern day evangelists. We're sharing the good news of our faith through the digital tools and resources that we have. What's your why? Why does media matter for the church? Let's ponder that question while we watch this video clip from Simon Sinek.
By why, I mean, what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done. That's how most sales is done. And that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do. We say how we're different or how we better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. People don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple. But as I said before, Apple's just a computer company. There's nothing that distinguishes them structurally from any of their competitors. Their competitors are all equally qualified to make all of these products. In fact, they tried. A few years ago, Gateway came out with flat screen TVs. They're eminently qualified to make flat screen TVs. They've been making flat screen monitors for years. Nobody bought one.
So clearly that was an older Apple commercial, but you get the gist. The way that Apple communicates, or the way that any industry communicates that has a lasting impact on people, it really does start with their why, not with what. So what's your why? Feel free to unmute or to raise your hand and unmute to answer that question. Why does media matter for the church? And by media, I mean any of these platforms. Why does it matter for the church? You can also put your answer in the chat as well. I believe that media matters for the church because we are responsible for sharing our faith and ensuring that our faith outlives us. And if we keep our faith to ourselves, if we don't share it with anyone, how are we creating a long-lasting faith that will live beyond our lifespan? We've inherited a faith that is thousands of years old, and it's only because people shared that faith. We inherited it. If you read Hebrews 11, there is a whole litany of what it means to be a faithful person and how we were inheriting our faith by those who passed that faith on and were examples of what it means to be faithful people. So now we're going to transition to media messaging. I would like to use this acronym MAP, our media messaging map. Whatever media that you engage, it's important to remember your map, your message, your audience, and your plan. For core message, that is the point that you are making with everything. You might have a Facebook post or an Instagram post, and it might only be a couple of lines or even one word. But as you're posting or as you're thinking about your posts, what is your core message? What point do you want to get across? And it's helpful to think about your core message with the messaging triangle. The first point is a value that is added through your core message. The second is a problem that you're perhaps tapping into or answering by having that post. And then the solution that you're offering. Here's an example. My core message is that everyone who visits my page should feel great or inspired. A value is that I love scrolling through a news feed that uplifts me as opposed to one that depresses me. The problem is that a lot of people share depressing information. So a solution is that I share funny memes of my cat. Now, I don't have a cat, but that's a great example. Uh, Another example could be something more serious. A core message is I think that everyone should have access to clean drinking water. A value is I grew up in a city that didn't have the infrastructure for clean drinking water. So we dug wells and we made clean drinking water accessible. The problem is that all these years later, that infrastructure has collapsed. A solution is now I'm raising money to build or to help build that city's infrastructure. Now, our posts most likely won't be talking about the infrastructure for our city's drinking water, but every post that we make should have a core message, should have some value added that you're bringing, why you're posting it, and should highlight a problem that you're then offering a solution, even if that solution is a smile or someone to be uplifted. Next is the audience. Who are you talking to? It's important to understand that you're not speaking in an echo chamber. You're not talking to yourself. You're not talking to the 3 people that you might be in direct messages with on Messenger. There's a whole host of other people out there. For the purpose of this presentation, I gathered some of the photos from you all because I knew that you would be here. You're the actual audience. And it's very easy to get some pictures when people fill out the form and share their links. So thank you all for sharing that information. The other piece about audience that I would like to lift up is that I like to do what's called personas. So each persona or bubble represents a type of person in my audience, or in your case, in your congregation. I would suggest no less than 3 personas and no more than 5. For the purpose of this, I put 6, but 3 to 5 personas or 3 to 5 people who represent the categories of people in your community that you will be communicating with on a regular basis. Why is this important? Because it helps you to tailor your information to the people you're talking to. If you just imagine some faceless person when you're creating your posts, you're going to likely create them to be what you can understand, what entertains and excites you, but it might not actually resonate with others or reach other people. So if you always have an actual picture in mind of the people that you're speaking to, it helps you remember, oh, yes, Sam. Oh, that's right. Megan. Oh, yeah, Scott. An example of this is I had a congregation and we had newborns all the way to 90-year-olds. So whenever I thought about my audience or my personas, I had a picture of a baby, I had a picture of a teen, I had a picture of a 40-somethings married person, I had a picture of a 40-somethings single person, and I had a person who was in their retirement age. That often helped me be mindful of the fact that I'm creating content for 90-year-olds, 40-year-olds, teenagers, and younger people. And what you say to one person really has to translate across the board. How do you do that? Well, that comes to our next letter in our acronym, plan. You plan ahead. Every piece of content isn't going to resonate with every single person. And so it's really great to have a calendar that you can look at and say, okay, how many posts am I going to do this week or today? What content do I want to lift up? If you have a church newsletter, what day does that come out? Put that on the calendar. If there's a church anniversary coming up or some birthdays or things that you want to celebrate, things that you want to share from the denomination, devotionals, prayers, these are all things you can plug in. And then also, if life happens and there is an emergent event and you want to look at the planning calendar to say, wow, we just had this person pass away in our church, and I want to share the news of that. Well, you might want to get on and share it immediately. And then if you don't look at the plan or you don't have a plan and someone else is posting, you can in 1 minute post so and so has passed away, the funeral is on Saturday, and then all of a sudden an hour later here's a post with balloons celebrating some arbitrary thing, right? That might seem insensitive. So if you have a plan, it will help you to organize your content so that people aren't going, whoa, what's going on? Now, you might notice that there are those media influencers in one of the strategies to get a larger audiences to post consistently. So if you're posting 3 times a week, post 3 times a week. If you're posting 3 times a day, post 3 times a day. But it shouldn't be you're posting 3 times a day for 6 months, and then all of a sudden you're not posting anything for 2 months, and then now you're posting every day again. Life does happen, so you might get busy. And sometimes that might mean that there are days that you aren't posting. If you're an individual, it's a little different. You can get away with that. If you represent an organization, people want to follow this organization. So make sure that you're not the only one that has the ability to post. Or if you do go on vacation or something happens or you have time off, empowering other people to be able to post as well so that the posting doesn't stop just because you're not there. If you're gone for 2 weeks and the page isn't active for 2 weeks, sometimes people will go, huh, I wonder what happened to them. And they will come back around and you post again and they'll be excited to see you. And sometimes, especially if you're a business or a church, sometimes that might mean something's wrong or things aren't happening. And if that's not the case, you certainly don't want to communicate that. So planning ahead is really important. Here is a list of planning tools. This will all be in your resource sheet, but these are the 14 best social media calendar tools. And I know that some of you already use some of these tools. So if you have others to add, or if you want to add tools that you use to the chat so that folks can have access to that during and after this call, feel free to add to the chat the different social media planning calendars that you might already be using in your work. Now here comes some fun stuff. It's all fun, but this is where you get to engage. These are interview techniques. Whether you're interviewing for a job or you're interviewing with a news outlet because your church is doing some amazing work and they want your opinion on something, there are things to do and there are things to avoid or things not to do. When you're being interviewed, or if someone says, hey, Kate, your church is doing this awesome thing, I would love to have your opinion. Do you have a moment, whether it's on the phone, on Zoom, or in person? Being interviewed is a big deal, and it's really exciting for the church. It's also exciting for the person as well. But here are some things to do. Know your topic. If you're being asked to speak about this event at your church, know when the event is, know what to expect at the event so that you can actually advertise the event. But if there are questions about the event, you're not going, I don't know, I didn't organize that. Well, that's not really helpful in the interview. Remember your appearance. What do you look like? Are you engaging? Are you maintaining eye contact? Are you fidgeting? What are you doing with your hands? Are you picking at something on your clothes? Are you playing with your hair? Do you keep doing that nervous thing that you do with your glasses when you feel like you're anxious? I'm just making that up. I have a little rock that I keep in my pocket or sometimes on my desk because sometimes I fidget. So it's not like you just can't, right? But you have tips and things that you do so that you appear relaxed, accessible, and confident in your interview. If you're nervous, if you're scared, and you're fidgeting or you're twirling or spinning around in your chair or shifting your body weight, it's going to come off as either you're nervous or you're not trustworthy. And either way, that doesn't translate well in an interview. Also, especially when you're being interviewed by people on news, media, TV, have your name, the title, and your organization written down and readily available. If you're going to a lot of protests or demonstrations, having a card with that information to hand to the person doing the interview is really helpful because they might be interviewing a lot of people that day. They might be scribbling down notes and they might have misspelled your name. And then, oh, you get the print and now that your name is spelled incorrectly. All of that can really be remedied by having your name, your title, and your organization written down for the person doing the interview. It saves them some work as well. Now, if they're really good at their work and this isn't just some fly-by-night interview, if they've been planning on interviewing you for months or weeks, chances are they already have this information and they've done a deep dive and done a lot of research about you. And it's still helpful to have this information available. Consider your source. Every interview is not worth doing. Sometimes it's exciting to think, oh, someone wants to interview me. But if their intentions aren't good, then it's not going to help your cause. An example of this, a friend of mine had an LGBTQ youth group at his church, and someone interviewed him. He was really excited about that. And the person took the interview and cut out all the good parts and really only shared the parts that were really problematic. And it wasn't that my friend was problematic, but they pieced together things that my friend didn't actually say to make him say something that was awful. And my friend didn't research the media source, comes to find out it's a super anti-LGBTQ group that interviewed him. So just consider your source. Before you take the interview, do some research. Who is this person? What organization do they represent? And what would you or your church get out of that interview? And last, certainly not least, pause between sentences. When you're doing an interview, it's great to have a lot of information and to be excited, but you don't want to overwhelm the listener, and you certainly don't want to overwhelm the video editor, who will most likely be very grateful for your pauses so that they know when to splice in the editing process. The pauses certainly help you complete your thoughts, but it also helps you speak in what's called sound bite form. Sound bites are great for media. If you say something in 30 seconds or less, and sound bites are typically 8 to 10 seconds. So if you say something in 30 seconds or less, you got 3 sound bites potentially right there that can be used in a number of ways. So make sure you pause between sentences. Things not to do. Don't speak on subjects you're unfamiliar with. If you're asked to talk about mathematics and you have no idea what they're going to talk to you about because you haven't looked at a math equation or even a textbook since you graduated from high school, it's probably not the subject that you should be talking about. Never go off the record. That's where people get into trouble. You rehearse the things that you know that you're going to talk about, but the moment you go off the record, you don't even know what you're going to say. And that's not a good representation of your church or your ministry. You should always be prepared, and you should always only speak to what you're going to speak to, what you have prepared to speak to, nothing more and nothing less. And even if the interviewer tries to trip you up, they say, oh, Karen, I know that we're here to talk about youth ministry, but what do you think about this new building project going up in Farmington? You know, that's a really great question. And I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about our youth. we can certainly have another opportunity to talk about that building project. And I'm sure there are others that are more qualified to talk about that. And then you steer the question back to where you started. Never interrupt the interviewer. Not only is that rude, but the interviewer will most likely not share your content in a good light. They'll be frustrated. They might be anxious, and they might not share anything that you said at all because they think, oh, this person is just so full of themselves, or I couldn't get a word in edgewise. So just be kind and remember that as much information as you have, yes, you are the expert. That's why they're interviewing you, but they're the interviewer. They're the expert at the interview. So let them lead. Don't be combative. There are some journalists and interviewers who it seems like their life purpose is to be disruptive and to be antagonistic. They want to get a rise out of people because that makes great media. If you have this trusted and respected person, pastor, celebrity, judge, whoever, flying off the handle, wow, that's going to go viral. People are going to go, wow, that person is usually so put together. And now here they're screaming and yelling at this poor interviewer, right? But you don't see what the interviewer did to get them to that point. So never be combative. Also, avoid saying no comment. You might truly not know, but it's better to say something informative and to suggest that you would like more information so that you can provide a more thoughtful answer than to say no comment. No comment suggests that you have something to hide. It doesn't suggest that you don't know. It just suggests that perhaps you know something that you're not willing to share. And that is also something that doesn't translate very well in an interview. Here's an example of a good interview technique.
One of the best things that you can do whenever you're facing questions, particularly in a media interview, is to be in a always add something mode. Hi, I'm Russ Ray. Thanks for watching. One of the key things that we cover in our Hahn Public Communications spokesperson training workshops is how to control the conversation, how to avoid topics coming up and dominating the conversation that you really don't want to talk about. So I came across a great example of this recently in a media interview with the co-CEOs of Whole Foods Market. John Mackey and Walter Robb responded to questions on CNBC about their brand new beautiful store in Brooklyn, New York. However, the topic came up about the store being built near a Superfund site. And notice how they handled those questions.
I live here for part of the week, and at one point during the summer, the river was green, and it smelled bad. What do you do? That happens again.
Well, I think the authorities are working, investing, putting resources to continue to improve that. But in the meantime, I think we're taking our step here to open this store and contribute to stepping up with the community.
Brooklyn is one of the most dynamic, evolving communities in America right now. We're really excited to be here.
And you had no problem coming up with different local merchants who are part of this store. It's kind of a store within a store.
So both of them did a great job transitioning away from the questions about the Superfund site and the environmental issues. They acknowledged the question by quickly saying, we've done a lot of remediation. The authorities are watching that, are doing a lot about that. But then they quickly added something about the great things that they've done in the community there around that store in Brooklyn. What did that do? Well, it prevented Cramer from asking additional questions about the environmental issues. So something to keep in mind the next time you're facing questions, always add something. Thanks for watching this edition of PR Playback.
So now I would like for us to break out into some breakout rooms. And for the introverts among us, don't worry, there are going to be just 2 people in each room. And if we have an odd number, you can certainly hang out with me. That's fine too. But in these breakout rooms, what you're going to do is interview each other. And the question or the prompt, it's not a question, it's a phrase, is tell me about your church. Each of you have 1 minute to tell each other about your church. We'll send a time reminder so that you know when to switch. But the first person will say, tell me about your church. The second person will then begin in 1 minute to speak about their church. And then once that minute is up, you'll switch. And then the second person will say, tell me about your church. And then the first person who spoke will then begin to speak about their church. Are there any questions? All right, Karen, would you mind helping get some breakout rooms set? And when you see the prompt for your breakout room, just go ahead and join that room.
All right. That should be good. 2 to a room, Lawrence. Is that what you said?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. We're all set. Lawrence, Kate and I were just getting better acquainted.
Ah,
That's awesome. We were talking about how you and Lillian are very good personas to have in the Michigan conference. Big draws.
well, we have a dynamic team, and I'm really blessed to know a lot of the folks. But I will say, Kate, you make a great addition to the board of directors, so it's really great to have you in multiple roles and to offer your insight and wisdom to this space. So it's really great to have you here.
It's good to be here. Y'all are a good conference, so keep up the good work.
Well, that was fast, and I know that we all could have talked for much, much longer, but now you get a little bit of the feel of when you only have a certain amount of time to do an interview, you have to pack it in no matter how much you want to talk, you just have to keep going. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to keep going. Now we are going to shift to talking about social media content creation. There are hundreds of social media platforms out there. I've listed the top 5 on this screen, and there's a link in our resource page for the top 35 most popular social media websites. Yes, 35, and there are dozens more. The top 5 are Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Your church doesn't need to be on all of these, especially if there aren't the resources to manage all of those. But you might be asking, which one do we do, or which ones do we do? And I say, go where your people are. Survey the people in your congregation and in your community and ask them which sites they use the most. And that's how you know where to go. If your community isn't online, again, go where they are. If they're, for example, still reading newspapers, you're going to have to take out some ads in a newspaper. You're going to have to get familiar with the newspapers that they read and do some fun things like printing on newsprint things that are more updated so that it looks like a newspaper, but perhaps it's a graphic or a meme. If your community, for example, only wants to do text messages, there are ways that you can accommodate that. And thanks again to Jen for putting some examples in the chat of texting apps that allow for sharing larger files. The one of the number one questions that we get is how to make content. And one of the things that we have at our disposal that many generations would have probably loved or hated is the smartphone. And this smartphone or tablet or computer is a video camera essentially as well. So to create video content, pick up your phone. Some people might not think it's as polished as having a camcorder or an expensive recorder, but you'd be surprised the kind of high quality content you can create when you're using a phone, a tablet, or your computer. How do you make graphics? There are software programs that will teach you how to do that. Like this one, the content that you're seeing in front of you comes from a site called Canva. Canva is a free site. There will be a link to that also, but Canva also has some paid versions where you can get access to a lot of other templates to use as well. Because this is a beginning training, this isn't the advanced training. We're not going to go through a Canva tutorial. We're not going to go through some graphic design tips. But there are some videos that you can use to learn how to do that sort of thing. The most basic content creation advice is to use the platform that you're on, go to the FAQs, read those FAQs, and learn about what posts generally do better. Across the board, videos and photos do way better than just written text. However, depending on the platform, written text actually does way better. If you're using Substack, for example, and Facebook, text still does really well on those platforms. Instagram, WhatsApp, YouTube, TikTok, videos tend to do better. I would say images, people love visuals. So when in doubt, be visual. And if you're writing longer form, I would say stick to Facebook and Substack. Every other platform, 100 words or less, or something really brief, because people are really only there for the visuals anyway. And if you have to click read more on an app like Instagram, chances are people aren't going to. If they love you so much and they follow you, like my sister loves me so much and follows me, and she says she reads my content, but I know sometimes she's just being kind. So depending on the person, they might really actually be reading or they might be scrolling through, and you don't want your messages to be lost. But there are softwares, programs that will help you create social media posts. Here are the top free ones that you can look at. And again, this will be linked in the resource section at the end that you'll have access to. But all of these apps allow you to create content for your social media platforms, and they're free. Now, there are paid versions, of course, available. But like I mentioned, Canva is one of them, and that's what we happen to be viewing today on this presentation. So here are some things that I created using the graphic design tools that I have. So this graphic here of the person on the video looking like they're just so honored to be here, that's a Canva graphic. And I didn't put all of the little bubbles and things together. They already had that created. Again, the same is true for this graphic beneath it. I wanted something that was a call to action, that was a person speaking, and a bunch of examples came up, and this is what I chose. Now, this example of the flying turtle with the transgender shell, I created that using artificial intelligence. And AI is many things, but most importantly, it's a tool. So I asked ChatGPT to create a flying turtle wearing a trans flag. The first picture that I got was a turtle with a flag sticking out of its shell. I said, that's not what I'm looking for. So I had to revise that prompt and say a flying turtle whose shell is made from and resembles the transgender flag. And that's what I got. So there are some great things that you can do with artificial intelligence, but in the advanced training, we will be doing content creation. So I invite you to register for that if you haven't already. What churches are doing social media well? Well, here's some examples. And there are many other examples that are also on our resource sheet. But first, we'll look at Salem UCC in Farmington. They have a dynamic page. You don't have to have thousands of followers in order to have a great social media presence. This is a dynamic page because there's a mix of events, photos, videos from worship services, announcements about the church, about things happening in the community and in the conference. So it's not just for the church. They're connecting the conference, they're connecting the United Church of Christ, they're connecting their local community. So this page makes me feel like not only am I a part of the church, the congregation, but that I'm a part of this larger network. I might not know all these people that are mentioned, but wow, this looks amazing. There's posts from our national church, so it helps me realize we're a large body, that it's not just Salem, that there's a network of churches. And of course, videos from General Synod are also great because if I didn't get to go, wow, this is a great highlight. So I know that there's so much happening, I can't possibly make it to everything, but this page makes me feel like if I just spent an hour or two just on this page or 30 minutes a day, that I would be learning something, my faith would be nurtured, and also I'd feel like I'm a part of a community. The next one, now this church, they do have thousands of followers and they still have a great presence. And again, it's because they have a mix of events, they have posts, videos, things that represent the wider community, church services, but also speakers and clips from their pastor. They have multiple pastors, but their events that are happening in the not only the wider community and in the wider church, but events that are just happening nationwide that people might be interested in learning about. It's always great to see the visuals. It's always great to feel like you're included. But again, there's so much happening here that it makes me want to visit the page to find out what's going on. Wow, there's so much going on. I can't obviously attend all these events, but boy, I could spend an afternoon watching videos and feel like I've just been spiritually nurtured or I've been entertained. There's so much to chew on here. And the topics are endless, right? And so again, this is a really dynamic page because of everything they have going on here. Last but certainly not least, we have First Congregational in St. Clair. They have a great Instagram presence too. So in the resource sheet, you won't see their Facebook link, but you will see the link to their Instagram page. What I love about this church's page is they have great graphics. You know, the graphics that, for example, join our choir. Look, this is an invitation for choir practice. Even as a media trainer, I don't remember the graphics that I created announcing my choir practice at the churches I pastored being as engaging. This makes me want to sing with these folks. It's fantastic. There's videos, there are prayers, there's all sorts of announcements. I always say your social media platform is not the glorified announcements section for your church. It's not just another newsletter. So the thing that they've done to make these announcements engaging is they've added graphics. It's not just a list of words that people will scroll by. These are engaging graphics with words ecumenical, food pantry, calling all volunteers. It makes me stop and look at this graphic. The other graphics are the same. The pictures are engaging. The information is informative, and it's still advertising things happening at the church, but in a fun and engaging way. And even the things that aren't advertising things happening at the church, look at the impact that they make by the testimonies that they share, the people that they lift up. They're asking for prayer requests. They're talking about ways that the people and the resources of the church reach out into the community. It's a really dynamic page. It's very engaging. And their Instagram account also is very engaging, which is why I included that in our resource section.
Lawrence, in the chat, Katie Daly has a good question. Did you want to address those now or wait till a later time?
Oh, that's fantastic. Let's address it now. I don't have my chat up. Let me pull it up. Should a new pastor take control of the web or Facebook for a time, especially if the whoever from before thinks like you? Can you expound on that a little bit for us, Katie?
Thinks little like you, who actually goes against anything that you are preaching and teaching about.
So I definitely believe that just like a pulpit, your social media presence, your online presence is your pulpit. So your pastor should have access to these platforms. Now, should your pastor be the only one posting to these platforms? Sometimes that's the case because of the size of the church and the capacity of the people. And I would tell that pastor by the end of the first year, have someone else who is also posting. If you have a church administrator, that's great. If you have a layperson who is really great at graphics, posting, that sort of thing, great. But the tone of the page, the tone of the posts, it should be consistent with that of the overall ministry. And so if your pastor, for example, says, I'm going to set the tone for this year, we're going to do a deep dive and we're going to be talking about the Beatitudes and the Psalms. And we're going to steer away from the justice stuff. We're in a season of discernment. Then that person's vision should govern the posts and the engagement online because they are the pastor of the church. Now, if there's a communications team and there's a bunch of people that have the power and the ability to post and create content, there's still going to be a meeting that happens where that pastor says, here's the vision. And regardless of whatever post they might create, there's still an overarching plan. So I would say the new pastor definitely should, every pastor, new or old, definitely should have input, is putting it mildly, over the vision and the direction of all of the church's communications. Think about this person as the executive director or the CEO of an organization or the chief strategy officer of an organization. They wouldn't be surprised by content on their platforms, and neither should a pastor be. Now, does the pastor need to approve every single post before it's posted? I believe if there is trust with the person who is managing the accounts, and if there is an understanding that we are a church and we're not going to post profane things, we're not going to have things that are too controversial, then I don't think that level of micromanaging is necessary. But if you just don't know, in a former congregation that I was pastoring, I met with the content creators every week, just like I met with my church administrator before getting out the weekly newsletter. We just meet and talk about the content, what direction things are going in, and then maybe I'll see some drafts, and then those things can be shared. But definitely, to answer your question, yes, I definitely think that should be that is a great question. A social media policy for a local church. I don't have one right now that I can share, but I will definitely include one in our follow-up email. And Rudra, you have a question.
Our Safe Church policy has a social media section now. So
That's fantastic.
just throwing that out there.
Bridget, are you saying from the insurance board? The template now has for Safe Church now has social media in it.
So I don't know the template from the insurance board, but the church that I serve, their Safe Church policy has a whole section on social media and includes stuff like if an adult is texting a youth, third person is copied, blah blah blah, stuff like that. I don't remember the details.
We will get that out. That's fantastic. Thank you for that question, and also for sharing the example that your church is using as well.
Mhm.
There is also a policy at the end in our resource document that is like a media release that you can use. And I'll update that to also add the Safe Church policy with the social media information. All of these things not only help ensure the protection of our church members and people who visit our church, but it also ensures that we aren't going to veer away from our core message. Again, going back to the beginning, what is our core message? And the core message of our ministries should be that people are safe, that the content does reflect the church or the best interest of the community, and that there are parameters that people are following. And if you have joined us late, welcome. This will be available at the end, so you'll be able to see it from the beginning, and there will be opportunities for us to continue to engage moving forward. But we will move ahead. Content creation is a hot topic, and there are many ways to do it, so I suggest that you just begin to play around. And a nice formula that I'll leave you with is 25, 25, 25, 25. 25% of your content should be created by you. 25% of the content should be created by other people. 25% of that content should be content that uplifts your church, organization, and 25% of that content should uplift the denomination or the wider church. And all of that content should be as visual as possible. And by visual, I mean visually stunning and captivating, not just words, pictures, images, videos that capture people. And Jen is doing an awesome job in the chat. Thanks, Jen. So next, we are going to talk about some digital storytelling. First, what is digital storytelling?
What is digital storytelling? Digital storytelling uses multimedia tools to bring narratives to life. Digital stories are versatile and can cover a wide variety of topics, such as explaining a concept, reflecting on a personal experience, retelling an historical event, or making an argument.
Come on, quiet.
Digital stories are typically videos that combine audio, images, and video clips to tell a story. Even though we recommend that digital stories be 2 to 3 minutes long, a lot of work goes into making one. First, you will need to brainstorm what you want your digital story to be about. Once you've determined the purpose of your digital story, the next step is to create a script and a storyboard. When writing a script, you will need to decide what you want your digital story to accomplish. The script and storyboard will lay out exactly how the digital story will unfold. The next step is to create your video. Depending on your script and storyboard, you may need to record your voiceover, gather or create images or video clips, and choose music and sound effects. Finally, put all the elements together and enjoy the final product. If you're interested in learning more about these steps, check out the guides and videos that we have linked in the description. So, why create a digital story? Creating a digital story is an engaging way to share information that requires creativity, self-direction, and experimentation with new technologies. Need help? Email library@uofguelph.ca, chat, or drop by.
Here is a great digital story example that's under 2 to 3 minutes, even though digital stories are recommended to be 2 to 3 minutes. Here's one that's under 2 to 3 minutes, and it probably took just as long to create.
Bible in a Minute, Isaiah chapter 1. Sometimes the Bible feels like an ancient, outdated, and irrelevant book. And sometimes it feels like a caption for the images and the headlines that we're seeing in our world today. Your country lies desolate, your cities are burned with fire, in your very presence aliens devour your land. It is desolate, as overthrown by foreigners. Ironically, these words from Isaiah are written about Jerusalem being destroyed and left desolate by its oppressors and occupiers. And now the same reality is still true, only the oppressed has become the oppressor. And Isaiah continues with some ancient words that are still incredibly relevant today. Cease to do evil, learn to do good, seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, plead for the widow. To all the Bible-believing Christians who support endless war and ignore the horrific impact it has on individuals and societies, maybe it's time to turn off Fox News and actually pick up the Bible and read it. Bible.
So as you can see, Jim Keat is a very dynamic person. He also is located in Michigan, but he is the digital minister for the Riverside Church of New York, and he's also the director of online learning for Convergence, which is located and based in Atlanta, Georgia. Before we begin a practice, I want to give you a great mnemonic that will help you remember storytelling in a way that you can tell a great story. Whether you're telling a digital story or getting up during mission moment or testimony time on Sunday and telling your faith story or a compelling story about work that you're doing at a nonprofit, you set up the situation, you tell some background, you give a little bit of context, you present some tension, you then talk about options or outcomes that are ideal, and then a revelation or a resolution, and then your takeaway. And there's going to be a lot of practice that's needed, but to tell a compelling story, it does take practice. Writing out what your ideas are is helpful. Whether you're crafting a sermon or a short story or a testimony, organizing your thoughts are vital, especially if you're wanting to make sure that the story that you share contains all of these components, that there is a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that takes people through a setup, identifies some tension, some outcomes or some options that are more likely, and the revelation or the resolution that is achieved by that story. And then again, your takeaway. The takeaway could also be a call to action or invitation that you are sharing. So now we're going to take some time to practice. You're going to, on your own, take 5 minutes and you're going to create a storyboard. Now, you're going to answer these questions in your storyboard. What point do I want to make? Now, this is a story you're making up, or it could be a real story that you'd like to share. What images, video, or audio do I need to tell my story? And how will the story be organized? Again, think about the storytelling video. You're not going to make the video right now, but if you were to make it later on today or this week, what point do you want to make? What images, video, or audio do you need? And how will the story be organized? I'm going to pause us for 5 minutes, and we're all going to take this time to create our own very brief storyboard.
Lawrence, Kate West in the chat would like a quick recap of tension and its definition, if you could.
Yes. So the tension might be an issue or a problem that was either solved because of your story or that will be the call to action that your story invites people to solve. So in Jim's example, the Bible being uh, filled with events that mirror some of the tragic things happening today was the tension that he lifted up from that specific passage. So the tension could be if you're talking about that a passage like Jim's, what is the downside of famine or war? Uh, when we talk about a God that answers our needs and that can be our great defender, there's someone that is then being oppressed. And so the tension could certainly be uh, something that's missing as well. So if it was a faith testimony, you can start by saying, uh, I didn't grow up in the church. And there was a time in my life where I didn't even believe in God. And yet I started questioning and I started feeling this sense of loss and disconnection. Right there is the tension, that questioning or that sense of loss. And then the outcome, I started going to church or I had this personal encounter with someone who told me about Jesus. And now I found this amazing community and helps me to learn about my faith. And I invite you all to join my church. So something like that. And since I talked for the last 30 seconds, I'll give us another 30 seconds. So now that we've had about 5.5 minutes, closer to 6, to write a brief storyboard, is anyone inspired enough to share their storyboard with the group? And let's take one or two folks who might want to share. And feel free to just unmute and begin speaking. And it's okay if you're not done. You can talk us through the parts that you're still working on.
Well, since no one else is talking, I'll just say, this is Galen Fisher, moderator DMA. I was thinking of the parable of the prodigal son as something that one could certainly build a story around. And our Christian ed director is especially good at these with the children in our services and which are really, everyone else listens to and shares in, so which are excellent. But you need to somehow start with a picture of, I think, a field in describing, showing that how much work is being done there. And so I was trying to think of a way of doing that and then introduce the family, but I hadn't gotten very far. Anyway.
Thank you, Galen. That's fantastic. I appreciate that. That's very great.
So I started creating a storyboard for something that is very applicable for the work that I'm doing right now with the Mitten Project, and what a digital storytelling, 1 to 2-minute video would be about how to take our worship engagement survey. And so how to make that easy to show images for people, provide the QR code for how they would log in, the importance of why everyone is invited to take it, and how that data will transform the work that we're doing. So that was kind of the layout of the storyboard that I worked on for 5 minutes.
That's fantastic. And this is really great because the idea is that we are creating things that we might one day use. And so with the example that Jen, that you gave, please include the link to that survey in the chat if you haven't already. And then also Rudra mentioned a social media policy. You can include that in the chat or email it to me and I'll share it with others. All the resources that you have, that we have, let's be resources to one another. So wonderful, wonderful opportunities to help each other out. And thank you for these examples. You all did wonderful. I hope that wasn't too intimidating. And I hope that you're inspired to think about the story and how you tell that story and invite others along the journey with you. So we did speak a little bit about this, but we'll talk more about it now. And this is our last slide before we begin our group conversation. And this is online safety. I've shared 4 tips and some things to think about. Tip 1, protect kids' identities. Get permission from their adults, blur faces, take photos from behind or overhead. Those are all different options. Those aren't all just the same sentence. There are multiple ways that you can protect kids' identities, and these are just the ones that I've mentioned. If you get permission from their adults to take their pictures, then you don't have to blur their faces. But if you don't get permission from their adults and you want to include a picture from a worship service or an event at the park, it just blur their face or put something, a little smiley or something over their face, and that takes care of it. But you also, there are some churches, people, I say, if people are sitting way in the back because they don't want to be on camera, just tell them that the view from the camera will be from behind. But it's not helpful to have several rows of empty pews in the camera shot, because people will then think, no one's coming to this church, why should I? So encourage people to sit up front, to sit in the camera view, or to just put the camera view on the people who are speaking so that then no one else is in the camera shot. But it's better to have the speakers in the view and people in the view. It's better than having no one at all and this person that looks like they're speaking to an empty room. So one way to get around that is to show people images of what the online video looks like. And you say, would you go to this church if you saw this online? There are 17 rows of empty pews, and then no one sees the 38 rows of people behind the camera. So show them that. Have them see for themselves what is engaging and what's appealing. And then also make sure that you're underscoring the protection and the safety that you're prioritizing. So if they're saying, I just don't sit up front because I don't want to be on the camera, there are ways to get around that. Put the camera up closer or take views from overhead or behind. Also, get permission. There's a signed media release that's linked here in the presentation and also in our resource sheet. And then you can post signs. I didn't create an example because it's really simple to just say recording in progress or this service is being recorded. Recording now can be on the doors to the sanctuary. If you're doing a Bible study that's on Zoom and it's broadcasted from the fireside room at your church, just put a sign outside the door and say Bible studies in progress, and put a little Zoom sign or whatever platform you're using, and say that it's being recorded or streamed live from this space so that people know that that's happening. And it's also exciting to sign up visitors and new members, but let them opt in and out of emails. No one likes receiving an email that they didn't anticipate receiving. I didn't sign up for this, and now all of a sudden I'm on a mailing list. So giving people the opportunity to opt in and opt out. It's just as simple as having that visitor card or that new member information form by saying, do you want to receive our newsletter? Check box for yes. It's that simple. And then in the newsletter, they might have said, yeah, I want to receive it, but they might scroll down to the bottom one day and say, I want to unsubscribe for a variety of reasons. Giving them that option is also empowering. Tip number 3, keep public information public and private information private. And remember, if it is online or outside, it's public. Social media is like the public square. You're standing out in the middle of the street and you're shouting, I had this for breakfast today, or here's a picture of my cat. And even if you share it to friends only, it's still in the public because it's outside of you and outside of your home. And an example is that this Facebook post that you see, the third image, I follow someone who happens to be a pastor. And because I follow them, things that they comment on will show up in my or anyone else's newsfeed. Now, I don't go looking for things that they post. It's almost impossible for me to say, hi, I wonder what they're posting about or clicking on that they don't post on their actual page. If you post on other people's posts, your comments show up in the newsfeed of your followers. So this person happened to reply to Facebook in a way that obviously is a little combative. This person is a pastor. And I think to myself, if I were this person's church member, is this a post I would want to see from my pastor pop up in my newsfeed? If I were a potential church looking for a pastor and I did some digging and decided, hey, I'm going to follow this person on Facebook, and now I'm getting notified whenever they post on things. So now I'm curious, what do they write about when they're commenting, when they think no one else is watching, or when they think they're talking to the establishment? And I see this post, I did cover their name, their photo, and the word that was a little challenging. I put a graphic over that, but you can kind of guess what it might say. But I might be totally wrong. This person might think that is exactly what I want my parishioners or potential parishioners to see. I want them to know who I am and what kind of person I am. Then by all means, be as honest and transparent as possible, but also be willing to take responsibility for your actions. There are some times where I post things or I will like and click on things because I know it's going to show up in someone else's newsfeed. I want them to see that I'm a dynamic person. I'm not just some serious, heady ACM that sits in an office all day, that I like music, or that I like to laugh, or that I like funny things, or sometimes I do post on problematic things so that they can see me engage in a challenging conversation. How does Lawrence respond to this person who just insulted him or just put this problematic post out? So some of that is teaching. Sometimes you don't want people to only see the good and the glossy and the glamorous, but sometimes you also don't want them to see I would say, the ugly side of life, right? So just be careful. Whatever you're posting on, police yourself. It's a platform. Someone else owns this platform. Therefore, all this information that you're sharing belongs to them. Even if it's a thumbs up, that thumbs up is going to show up on somebody else's page. So I shared some pictures of examples of kids. I got all of the permission from the families to post and to take these pictures in general. Obviously, they don't know about this presentation, but the first is from a church that I pastored, and we had an event at an art gallery. And these were all the littles, and their parents were in the room, and they said, "Take our picture." And so we had photo releases from all the families and all the kids lined up, and we took a picture. The second was an intergenerational event in Farmington, and it was the same thing. Everyone there agreed to be in the picture and totally gave permission for their families. But what I did for this presentation is I blurred their faces just to show you how it can be done and how it can look. They didn't ask for that in the original picture, but I did it for this presentation just so that you can see that it really doesn't take away from the photo. And again, there's that example from Facebook that, again, just be mindful of what you click on, what you like, what you comment on, what you share, not only on your own personal pages, but on the pages of others as well. Now, last but not least, avoid phishing scams, protect sensitive information. There's a lot out there that looks real, that looks compelling, and it's just not. The last graphic that you'll see, I did include the phone number. I'm saying keep public information public and private information private, but this person tried to scam me. So now this information is public, so I'm sharing it. I also went to the Better Business Bureau scam tracker, which is also linked in our resource sheet, to report this person because they are impersonating an actual business. And they were trying to hire me, and I use that in quotes, because it just seemed too good to be true. And so I got this message, and it was on a group message. That was the first sign that something was wrong with it. No person who's recruiting for a job is going to send a mass text and say, "Hey, you can make this much money if you do this." It just seemed a little off. So I took a screenshot and I sent it to the Better Business Bureau and filled out their scam tracking form to let them know. And lo and behold, several other people had received the exact same message. And so just be on the lookout. Never send your personal information in an email or text message. If someone's asking for your credit card information or your social security number, or your checking account number, or even your phone number, there are forms to fill out that's different. If you're filling out a form for a job, like there's some safety precautions that they'll have, some ways that you can verify information. But if it's just, hey, reply to this email and send me your phone number, send me your bank account information, or click on this link, those are all signs. There's another scam that's happening to pastors in churches where people will receive emails and the email will say the pastor's name, but it'll be asking for gift cards or asking for money. You should always pick up the phone and call your pastor. "Hey, Tim. Hey, Sherry. Are you in need of some gift cards? Do you need money to get out of jail? Because I just got this message from you that says this." That's the first step to take. But also click on the name to reveal the email address. And if the email address is not your pastor's email address, chances are it's someone impersonating your pastor. That happens quite a bit. So I would say there are many other phishing scams out there. Do you all have some examples of phishing scams or ways that people have tried to be fraudulent or misleading online?
You've mentioned the ones that we've had in the past 3 months.
Really? Wow. Wow.
And so the issue becomes for some of the senior citizens in our congregation, one person fell for it and bought one of those gift cards and lost money, basically.
I am sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. Jen said in the chat they can feel super real. They can. They really can. Yeah.
We
Galen.
just
I mean, just this week, on Monday, I got early on Monday morning, I got three emails that looked very similar um, from PayPal, supposedly, um, to sign me up for something that costs $499.99. And it and I don't belong to PayPal, so I was very surprised. And I ended up but because I got three, if I'd gotten one that was to my address, but I got two others that were for another email address, I might have been tempted to call the phone number on that note anyway. And but what I did is I went online and found out, got the number for PayPal, and I called them up, which is a different phone number, and just told them what had happened. They said, well, that's obviously scam. We don't do this, and so on. So I didn't call that other phone number that was in the email, but they said that that's a pretty standard way of phishing, and that people can even come in while you're talking to them on the phone and put something on your phone um, that will give them more access.
Wow.
So anyway, that was what happened to me.
Wow. Thanks, Galen. Jen, you were going to share something.
Yeah, a couple of things. So, one of the scams that I unfortunately fell for at one point was Facebook. And it was your account has been hacked type situation, which then I believed them and then didn't realize until after the fact that it was a phishing scam. And then just recently, the pastoral, the minister, the conference minister, we just had Lillian actually gets them all the time. And I just got one that I literally had to read 3 times and then go check the email and be like, oh, this is a scam. Like it was, I mean, the AI behind the voicing and the tone and the even like the text structure, like the language of how that person communicates is getting really tricky to be able to discern. So yeah, and it's always the trick. Kind of, Galen, you actually like went and looked for another number for PayPal, right? It's always going and looking for the actual information someplace else and not following what's in those emails or those text messages. So I mean, even driving along like 75 lately, right? All the like toll texts are scams. Like don't answer like if you haven't paid a toll. It's all it's really challenging. So if you don't know who it's from, don't click it.
Yeah, there's so much nowadays, and
Wow.
it just is helpful to always check your sources. Again, I like that suggestion, Jen, and the one that Galen used. If somebody's saying, "Hey, I'm from this organization, call this number," do a Google search of that organization. Look at their website. Is that their number? It might not be their number. It might not be that person's email address. If you get an email from Lillian or for Jen saying, "Hey, we need $70, or $7,000 at the conference office and gift cards for whatever," check that email address. Reach out to Jen. Say, "Lillian, are you really asking for gift cards?" I mean, some of these do sound really compelling. Some of them are also, I would say in the beginning, some of them were really not. Words were misspelled and all of that, but now they're getting really sophisticated. I fell for one, and they got into my computer at a former church, and I saw them moving around on the page, and it was the scariest thing I had ever seen. But I thought it was Dell workshopping an issue that we had with our computer, and it wasn't. So just to be aware of these scams and to protect your information. We are at the end of our time, and now it's time for our discussion. And I'm hoping that there's at least a question or a comment or more resources that you'd like to share. Are there things that came up for you during this conversation? And if so, feel free to share. We have about 15 minutes remaining of our time, and I would like to reserve at least 2 or 3 minutes of that time to close us out in prayer.
Um, just to kind of not to reiterate or hash it out too much, but for people who aren't looking at the chat, just in case, Kate was mentioning answering your phone. And like if they say, if this is blah, 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 and you say yes, right? Like those sorts of, that's like answering your phone. It can actually be a voice recording phishing scam now to get your voice to be able to utilize and manipulate in nefarious ways. And so from a strategy from this standpoint, like I very often, if I don't know the number, I just let it go to voicemail and I call people back, right? I mean, just that like it's sad, but tech is being used in some really tragic ways. And so making sure that you're being aware and helping people in your congregations, right? Like that's another, like the awareness piece of educating folks is important. So, thanks.
Lawrence,
Well,
we had
just
a question.
apologize
Oh.
for being late. I was turned into a very busy day with grandchildren and someone else's job issue. So anyway,
Well, it's great to have you here, Galen. And
how do we get the resources, or is that you know that I was here and I'll get something in the email?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
And I just shared the resource list in the chat that will continue to be updated, and I'll follow up with you all and everyone else who has registered with this video and with the resource link as well. Karen, you had something that you were going to add?
Yeah, we had a question earlier in the chat about Substack. And Jen was able to give some resources, which thank you, Jen. She's always well informed. Do you have any other like takes on using Substack, pros and cons or anything?
So I actually am launching a Substack. I've been writing furiously and recording furiously. I would say Substack is really great for like blogging, for writing, for sharing like video content. I would say use Substack almost like your own personal website or your own personal blog, and have it be layered. There's certainly content that you could monetize. So I would say give the teasers, help people know like that they get something for free, right? Like if it's a video every week or if it's something that you write about, but entice people to want to support your work, especially if you plan on like sharing insightful things or resources for people that you're going to spend time to curate and offer to a wider audience of folks. So I would say certainly play with it and get as much from it as you can and use it as a way to communicate with people, but also showcasing all that you can do and all that you know. I mean, it's so dynamic. And then what I love is that you can follow people who are also doing really great and innovative things or who have knowledge and expertise. And it's just a great idea exchange platform as well. How about others? Any thoughts about whether it's Substack or other programs or processes that we might have lifted up today? Well, this has been fantastic. And there's so much information that was shared in such a brief amount of time. This isn't the how to set up the web page or the Facebook page, but Each of the platforms that you engage has FAQs. There's a ton of folks on YouTube, for example, who offer tutorials about these different platforms. I didn't want to use our time to do that, but I did hear that one of the people who registered wanted some Zoom tutorials. So in our resource list are some videos about Zoom best practices and Zoom basics for beginners. Every platform has the same kind of intro or beginner level videos available. I suggest starting there. And then again, to reiterate, which platforms do you use? The ones where your people are at. And if they're not using platforms and you want to help migrate them toward a platform, taking a survey of what they want to use that platform for. If they want to talk, if they want to use just text, if they want to share videos, if they want a small group, if they want to study, those are all factors that impact the type of platform that you use. Some platforms are better for groups. Some platforms are really just great for sharing information. But researching the platform, if you aren't already on it, if your church members aren't already on it, and then there is that list of the top 35 social media platforms. If you want to, go down the list and see what they're for, that also might be helpful. But start with your congregation, ask them what they're using and be there with them, be where the people are. It's like any other platform, your church physical space or your church online space. It's an extension of your ministry. And if people are showing up there and you want to be there with them and you want to share the good news of your faith, the news of your church, and make the resources of your church accessible to them wherever they are. Are there any last minute questions or thoughts that you all have before we have our closing prayer? All right, well, let us pray. God, we thank you for this day and for this opportunity to have this deep dive into the world of media messaging. And as we're creating content, preparing for interviews, looking at policies, or even thinking about the ways that we tell the stories of our faith online, on site, God, we know that you're in the midst of it all. And we ask for your wisdom and your guidance as we navigate all of these spaces in all of these places. We thank you for our church, the United Church of Christ, and each and every single person who has been transformed by the faith and the faithfulness of your people. We thank you for calling us to be your hands, heart, and feet in the world, and we ask that you just go forward with us now in all of our spaces as we go about our days. It is in your holy and many names we pray and give thanks. Amen. Well, thank you, friends. So great to be with you. I wish you all well. Be on the lookout for an email with this information and also a way to give feedback about this time. Thanks again.